For today's episode, I'd like you all to take my hand and join me for a fun little voyage down into the basement. Let's get started. Hello homies, welcome back to Oktoberfest here on Thumb Together. We're talking about movies from my childhood that were scary or Halloweeny or both, and today we got a doozy for you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Wes Craven's masterpiece, The People Under the Stairs. Wes Craven made a lot of movies in his very storied career. He is one of the, if there's a Mount Rushmore of horror filmmakers, Wes Craven is on that Mount Rushmore. Like, that is a given. He has graced the world with things like A Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream. Like, he is just one of the greats, and he has so much fun doing what he does. But personally, when it comes to this handsome gent right here, no Wes Craven outing is more fun or more wonderful than The People Under the Stairs. I'm going to explain to you what this film's about. And once I'm done, you're going to realize that this movie is a movie I watched as a little kid, and then you're going to be afraid of me, and you're probably going to stop watching my videos. But that's okay. The main character of the film is a little kid named Fool. Fool is a boy who lives in a ghetto area of, they never specify, but I think it's supposed to be Los Angeles. He lives in the ghetto. He's got a very poor family. His mom is sick and dying. They don't have a whole lot of money because guess what? The landlords, the people who own their ghetto, charge them exorbitant amounts of money for their rent. So now he can't afford to buy medicine for his mom. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place. So Fool starts chatting up one day with his sister's friend, played by Ving Rhames. Ving Rhames is kind of a professional criminal. He goes around and he burgles houses and steals, from jewelry stores and robs liquor stores. He's just like a small-time crook. And he tells Fool, he's like, hey, look, I'm kind of good at breaking into homes. Your landlords have this really big mansion with, from what I've heard rumors, there's lots of money hidden in that mansion, lots of treasure. Why don't we go break in there and steal the money from your landlords? Because they're jerks anyway, so it's not like we're stealing from good people. And Fool is like, hey, you know what? I'm a nice kid. I don't really like the idea of theft, but my mom is going to die if I don't get her some meds, so let's do it. Let's go rob this house. Now you're probably thinking, where's the horror? When's the horror going to show up? Here's the thing. The two landlords who live in this big home are never named in the film. They are just given the names Mommy and Daddy. They are a middle-aged couple who sleep in the same bed and have a little girl that they care for and live seemingly ordinary lives, except they are not married. They are, in fact, brother and sister in an incestuous relationship. The little girl they take care of is not their daughter, but a girl that they kidnapped at some point in time and are basically holding hostage. They're religiously devout to the point of being extreme. They're basically like if Jeffrey Dahmer and Ned Flanders had babies, and those two babies became an incestuous couple. If the little girl does something that they don't approve of, they lock her in her room, toss her into a tub full of boiling water, and tell her to burn in hell for all her sins. They have a really vicious attack dog named Prince, who guards their home from intruders. Mommy dresses like a turn-of-the-century matron and is always spouting religious propaganda with a dead serious expression. And Daddy has a full-body leather gimp suit that every once in a while he will put on and then run around the house with a shotgun screaming things incoherently. And there's more. These two really, really love kidnapping children, and their basement is full of kidnapped children who have been locked away for pretty much their entire lives. They've been down in the basement so long that their skin is pale and vampire-like. Their tongues have been cut out so they can't speak, and they're being kept there for no other reason than Mommy and Daddy just like to do this. It's their thing. One of the children, a guy named Roach, has managed to escape the cages, but he can't escape the house because it's very heavily fortified. So he's created a series of tunnels all throughout the house that he can crawl through and get from point A to point B without Mommy and Daddy seeing him. But every once in a while they can hear him like crawling through an air vent, so when that happens, Daddy puts on his gimp suit and shotgun and runs around saying, "Burn in hell!" and shooting at the air vents and trying to kill Roach. This is a normal Tuesday in this house. The very same house that the unsuspecting Fool and Ving Rhames have just entered willingly, hoping to rob. There you go. There's your setup. Enjoy the picture. Oh, and this movie is rated a hard R, so when you see people's tongues being cut off, when you see shotguns being shot at people, when you see little girls being dipped into tubs of boiling hot water. They don't sugarcoat anything, kids. They show you every detail, whether you like it or not. Yes, I watched this almost religiously as a small child. No, I was never frightened of it as a small child. I thought it was 2 tons of heaping fun, and I still think so today, because, ladies and gentlemen, what you've just heard, People Under the Stairs, is one of the greatest movies that I think has ever been made by a human being. There's no way I'm spoiling the ending of this film, because it is just too much fun, and I really, really want you to make it a point to try and watch it yourself if you have not seen it. But the brass tacks of it all is that, yes, like I said, Fool is going to enter this house alongside Ving Rhames, and they're going to try to rob it. And for pretty much the whole movie, they're trapped in that house. Whether or not they get out is something I'll leave up for you to discover. It's essentially a bottle episode. It's essentially a claustrophobic kind of thing. It's Die Hard, but instead of a skyscraper, it's a large house full of hidden passageways, secret tunnels, a gimp guy with a shotgun, and some weird vampiric, tongueless, kidnapped people under the stairs. I'm going to give you like 3 seconds right now to just let all of that sink in. As a little kid, I remember the only thing that kind of frightened me was initially seeing the literal people who lived under the stairs, the kidnapped children. Because as a little kid, I didn't quite grasp everything that was going on. I was so young when I used to watch this. I was like 5 or something. So, your head doesn't wrap around plot the way it does when you're an adult. I just saw it as like, I didn't comprehend why Fool and his buddy were going into this home. I was just like, okay, he's a kid, and then all of a sudden they're in this house. Like, it didn't click that he was trying to rob them. I guess I was just a stupid kid. I don't know. And when it got to the point where we see what's in the basement, again, it didn't click to me that these were innocent children who have been kidnapped and held by mommy and daddy. To me, I thought they were literally like ghouls or something, like ghostly creatures who just happened to live in the basement because basements are scary. Every kid knows that. As I got older, I understood what was going on, and the kids under the stairs became less scary. They became sympathetic characters. But as a kid, initially, when you see that reveal, when you see who is under the stairs and what they look and sound like, because remember, they don't have tongues, so they don't sound human, and they've been out of the sunlight and out of society for decades, so they don't look human. That freaks you out. I remember that specifically freaking me out, and I'm being like, oh man, that's scary. They're like scary ghost monsters or something. I don't like this at all. Mommy and Daddy, on the other hand, the real monsters of the film, the real villains, never scared me as a kid. I just thought they were hilarious, and I still think so today. These are probably some of my favorite villains in cinematic history. You're probably laughing and thinking that that's a silly claim to make, but if you haven't seen them in action, you can't know what I'm talking about. It was even a little bit of a spoiler right now for me to tell you that they're brother and sister and not a married couple, because the film takes a while to reveal that. But I think if you know beforehand, it doesn't really ruin anything. It's just, you can't take your eyes off them when they're on screen. They are a force of nature. They're played by Wendy Roby and Everett McGill, who never really did too much more, as far as I know. But interestingly enough, both of these actors starred in the show Twin Peaks, where once again, they played a married couple. So I thought it was really interesting that they got scooped up and basically dropped into this movie, albeit with much more sinister intentions. I might be the only person in the world who thinks that this is the greatest movie on Wes Craven's resume, and I'm okay with that. You might think I'm insane for not saying Scream or not saying Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't care. This is one of the most fun films I have ever watched in my life, and I will continue loving it till the day I die. I want like a board game of this or something. I want a video game. I want to step behind the wheel. I want to play as Fool, and I want to escape this house of horrors in my own way. If you're a fan of the horror genre, you owe it to yourself to see this movie at least once, man. At least once. I guarantee you're going to have a hell of a fun time. But that was today's episode of Oktoberfest, and guess what? We have finished the first chapter of Oktoberfest. We have finished movies from my childhood. Coming up next on Oktoberfest, we are going to jump into the second category. That category is obscure gems. These are horror movies that are much more on the obscure side, ones you've probably never really heard of, but I want to shed some light on them. Kind of like People Under the Stairs itself, except that was such a staple of my childhood, I had to put it under the childhood category. So I'll be back in a couple of days' time with more Oktoberfest fun, and I'll be shedding some light on some super spooky, super obscure Halloweeny movies that I hope all of you will take into account and start to enjoy as much as I do. Until next time, my friends, adios.